Let me ask you something. Have you ever told yourself, yeah, I should probably start investing soon? Maybe you watched a few videos. Maybe you even opened an investing app. You looked at the charts. You read about index funds. You heard people talk about compound interest. And for a moment, you thought, okay, I get this. I'll start soon. But then, days passed, weeks passed, months passed, and somehow, you still haven't started. Not because you're irresponsible, not because you're bad with money, and definitely not because you're incapable of understanding investing. So, what's actually going on? Why do millions of intelligent, hardworking people delay something that could completely change their financial future? The answer is uncomfortable. Because the real reason most people haven't started investing isn't knowledge, it's emotional resistance. And once you see it, you start noticing it everywhere. Most financial advice assumes something very simple. It assumes the problem is information. That people don't invest because they don't know how. So the solution becomes more education, more videos, more books, more podcasts, more explanations about compound interest and index funds. But here's the strange thing. We live in the most financially educated era in history. You can learn the basics of investing in 30 minutes online. Seriously. Open YouTube, search how to start investing, and within half an hour, you'll understand more about investing than most people knew 30 years ago. Yet millions of people still don't start. Not next week, not next year, sometimes not for decades. So clearly, something else is happening, and that something is psychological. Because investing isn't just a financial decision, it's an emotional one. And for a lot of people, those emotions quietly block the first step, the first emotional barrier, fear of losing money. Let's start with the most obvious one, loss. Human beings hate losing money. Actually, we hate losing money more than we enjoy gaining it. Psychologists call this loss aversion. Losing $100 feels far worse than gaining $100 feels good. And investing immediately triggers this fear. Because the moment you invest, you accept something uncomfortable. Your money will go up. And down. And sometimes, down a lot. Even if the long-term trend is positive, your brain zooms in on the short term. What if the market crashes right after I invest? What if I buy at the wrong time? What if I lose money I worked hard for? So instead of taking action, your brain chooses safety. And safety feels like doing nothing. Your cash stays in your bank account. Your balance never drops. Your brain relaxes. But here's the hidden irony. Doing nothing feels safe, even when it's financially dangerous. Because inflation quietly eats away at your money every single year. But emotionally, slow, invisible loss feels safer than visible market volatility. The second emotional barrier, the feeling of not being ready. Here's another pattern I see constantly. People say, I just want to learn a little more first. I want to understand everything before I start. I'm still researching, and on the surface, that sounds responsible. But sometimes, research becomes a form of emotional protection because learning feels productive without exposing you to risk. You can watch investing videos for months. You can read finance books. You can study charts, and your brain feels like you're making progress. But the moment you actually invest, the emotional stakes become real. Now your money is in the market. Now prices move. Now uncertainty becomes personal. So your brain delays that moment. Not consciously, but quietly. You tell yourself you're preparing, but emotionally, you're avoiding discomfort. The third barrier, money and identity. This one is deeper, and people rarely talk about it. Investing forces you to confront how you see yourself, because for many people, investor feels like a different category of person. Investors are rich. Investors are experts. Investors understand finance. So if you grew up in an environment where investing wasn't normal, your brain might subconsciously think, that's not really people like me, even if you intellectually know anyone can invest. Emotionally, it still feels unfamiliar, almost like stepping into someone else's role, and human beings are incredibly attached to identity. We tend to repeat behaviors that feel consistent with who we think we are. So, if your internal identity is, I'm just trying to get by financially. Or, I'm not really a finance person. Then investing feels slightly unnatural. And that tiny emotional friction can delay action for years. The fourth barrier, the paralysis of choice. Modern investing also creates another strange problem. Too many options. Stocks, ETFs, index funds, dividend portfolios, real estate, crypto, international funds, growth funds, value funds, small cap funds. Suddenly, the simple idea of start investing becomes overwhelming. Your brain starts asking questions like, what if I pick the wrong thing? What if there's a better option I'm missing? What if I regret my decision? So instead of choosing imperfectly, people choose nothing, which is psychologically easier because a wrong decision hurts, but no decision feels neutral, even though financially, it's not neutral at all. The fifth barrier, short-term life pressure. Here's another very real reason. Life feels expensive right now. Rent, food, transportation, bills, unexpected expenses. When money already feels tight, investing can feel like a luxury. Your brain focuses on immediate survival. Let me stabilize my life first. Let me earn more first. Let me get comfortable first. And that logic makes sense emotionally. But it can also create a trap. Because investing isn't something people start when life becomes calm. Most people start while life is still messy, still uncertain, still imperfect. Waiting for the perfect financial moment to invest is like waiting for the ocean to stop moving before learning to swim. It never happens. The quiet truth about people who start investing. Now here's the interesting part. People who successfully start investing aren't necessarily smarter. They don't have perfect knowledge. They're not immune to fear. They feel the same emotions. The difference is much simpler. They start before they feel fully comfortable. They accept that uncertainty is part of the process. They don't eliminate emotional resistance. They move through it, usually by starting very small. Sometimes with amounts that feel almost insignificant. $50, $100, maybe a small monthly contribution. And something interesting happens once they begin. The emotional barrier shrinks because action creates familiarity. The thing that once felt scary slowly becomes normal. The psychology shift that changes everything. Here's the mindset shift that helped me understand investing differently. Investing isn't about being confident. It's about being consistent despite uncertainty. You don't need perfect timing. You don't need perfect knowledge. You don't need to feel ready. You just need to begin the process. Because the real power of investing isn't a single decision. It's time. Time in the market. Time for compounding. Time for small contributions to grow. And every year you delay, that time disappears. Quietly, if you've been delaying investing, there's a good chance the problem isn't intelligence. It's not discipline either. It's simply emotional resistance. Fear of losing, fear of being wrong, fear of stepping into something unfamiliar. Those emotions are normal. Everyone feels them. Even experienced investors still feel them sometimes. The difference is, they don't wait for those feelings to disappear. They start anyway. Usually small, usually imperfect. But they start, and years later, that small, uncomfortable decision becomes one of the most important financial moves they ever made. So maybe the real question isn't, do I understand investing enough yet? Maybe the real question is, what emotion is actually holding me back? Because once you see that clearly, starting becomes a lot easier. And often, it begins with something surprisingly simple. Your very first investment. If you found this helpful, consider subscribing to follow for more tips. I'll see you in the next one.